All right, so today we're going to be diving deep into neuroeconomics.
Sounds good.
Yeah, using Jason Zweig's Your Money in Your Brain as our guide.
Oh, fantastic.
And basically, exploring all these fascinating ways that our brains kind of mess with our financial decisions.
Yeah, it's a really interesting book. He does such a good job of blending, psychology, biology, and investing together to explain, like, why we make decisions that sometimes just don't seem to make sense logically, especially when it comes to, like, our finances.
Yeah, one of the things that really stood out to me was how our brains are like programmed to react so much more strongly to losing money than they are to gaining it.
Oh, absolutely.
Like it's like that primal fear takes
Yeah.
over.
It's like our ancestors, losing their food or their shelter, or like it was a life or death situation.
Right, like a saber-toothed tiger is going to come eat you if you don't have your spear.
Exactly.
But like in the modern world, it's more like, oh no, my stocks went down a little bit.
Right. And Zweig actually calls this loss aversion. And he explains in the book that studies have shown that losses are perceived as like twice as impactful as gains.
Wow, that's a big difference.
It is. And think about it. Like imagine the feeling of losing, say, $100.
Ugh, I don't even want to think about it.
Right. And now compare that to the feeling of gaining $100.
I mean, it's good, but it's not like twice as good as losing $100 is bad.
Exactly. And so this really explains a lot about why people behave the way they do with money.
So is that why I like hold on to those losing stocks for way too long? I'm like hoping they'll come back.
Oh, yeah, could be. It's a classic example of loss aversion in action. We just hate to admit defeat, even when it's probably the best financial decision.
Yeah, it's like I'm trying to avoid the pain of like actually taking the loss.
Yeah, and Zweig even talks about, investors during like the dot-com bubble
Oh, yeah.
and how some people just held on to those tech stocks even as they were like plummeting.
Oh, wow, that's gotta hurt.
It did. A lot of people got burned.
So how do we escape this loss aversion trap? Like, can we rewire our brains or something?
Well, Zweig suggests a few different strategies. One is to focus on the bigger picture. Instead of getting fixated on like individual losses, try to zoom out and look at your overall portfolio performance.
So it's like taking a step back from the emotional roller coaster and looking at things more rationally.
Exactly. Another strategy he recommends is diversification,
Yeah.
spreading your investments across different asset classes.
Oh, that makes sense so that if one thing goes down, the others can maybe cushion the blow.
Exactly. It's like that old saying, don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Right, yeah. But Zweig doesn't just focus on loss aversion, does he?
Oh, no, not at all.
There's a lot more going on in our brains when it comes to money.
There is. There's the whole other side of the coin, too. The excitement of gains.
Oh, yeah, that feels good.
It does. And Zweig explains that when we experience a financial win, our brains get a hit of dopamine.
Dopamine. That's the feel-good chemical, right?
That's the one. And it can actually lead to a cycle of, craving more and more, even if it means taking on more risk.
So it's like our brains are wired for a financial sugar rush.
Pretty much. And it explains why some people get caught up in things like, speculative bubbles or risky investments.
Yeah, they're chasing that high even if it could put their financial security at risk.
Exactly. And what's even more interesting is that research shows that the anticipation of a reward actually triggers a stronger dopamine response than actually receiving the reward itself.
Really? So you're saying the thrill is in the chase, not the catch?
Yeah, in a way.
How now?
And so our brains light up with anticipation, imagining all the potential gains.
And that can lead to some pretty irrational behavior, I'm guessing.
It can. Think about like the frenzy around IPOs or the hype surrounding like a new cryptocurrency. People often get swept up in the excitement and the anticipation, even if the odds of striking it rich are actually really slim.
So on the one hand, we've got loss aversion, making us super cautious.
Right.
And on the other hand, we've got the allure of gains pushing us towards risky behavior.
Yeah, it's like our brains are battling it out
They are.
when it comes to money.
So I guess that's why it's so important to understand these like underlying neural mechanisms.
It is. Once we're aware of how our brains are wired, we can start to develop strategies to like counteract those impulses.
And make more rational decisions.
Exactly.
So it's all about becoming the master of our own financial destiny.
Yeah, in a way. But Zweig also warns about another danger that can trip us up,
I don't know, what's that?
the trap of overconfidence.
Oh boy.
It's easy to fall into thinking we can like outsmart the market, predict the next big winner,
Oh yeah, I've definitely been there.
or time our investments perfectly.
Yeah, I thought I had it all figured out, and then
Then it all came crashing down.
pretty much.
Yeah.
So what does Zweig suggest instead of like trying to beat the market?
Well, he's a big proponent of passive investing strategies,
Like,
like index funds. He points out that these funds, which basically just track a specific market index, often outperform those actively managed funds.
interesting. So sometimes the best approach is to just acknowledge our limitations and let the market do its thing.
Exactly. Recognizing that we can't predict the future with certainty is like a crucial step towards making sound financial decisions.
Okay, I can see that. And this actually leads to another key insight from Zweig,
Oh, and what's that?
the importance of understanding the role of randomness in the market.
Ah, yes. Our brains are wired to seek out patterns and make connections even when none actually exist.
Yeah, we're always trying to make sense of the world.
We are, and that can be helpful in a lot of situations.
Sure.
But in the financial world, it can actually lead to some costly mistakes.
So you're saying that sometimes it's just dumb luck and no amount of analysis or prediction can change that?
Yeah, sometimes. We might see a few stocks go up in a row and convince ourselves there's a trend, even though it might just be random chance.
It's like trying to read tea leaves or find shapes in the clouds.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Exactly.
Their brains are pattern-seeking machines.
They are, and in the financial world, that can sometimes work against us.
So Zweig is saying we should just accept that randomness is part of the game.
He is, and he cautions against trying to, time the market or chase after hot stocks based on flimsy evidence.
Okay, so we've talked about loss aversion, the allure of games over confidence, the role of randomness.
It's a lot.
It is. It seems like our brains are working against us at every turn.
Sometimes it feels that way.
But Zweig wouldn't leave us hanging without some practical advice, would he?
Oh, no, he offers a wealth of strategies for overcoming these biases and making more rational financial decisions.
Okay, good.
But before we delve into those, let's take a moment to consider another fascinating aspect of neuroeconomics.
Oh, what's that?
The link between money and happiness.
Okay, now that's a topic I'm definitely interested in.
Yeah, it's a big one. So does more money actually equal more happiness? I'm guessing Zweig has some insights on that. He does, and it might actually surprise you. While financial stability is definitely linked to happiness.
Sure. I mean, nobody wants to stress about paying bills.
Exactly.
Or putting food on the table.
Right. But Zweig argues that there's actually a limit to how much wealth contributes to our overall life satisfaction.
Oh, really? So you're saying there's a point of diminishing returns when it comes to money and happiness?
Precisely. He cites studies showing that once we reach a certain level of financial security, enough to meet our basic needs and feel secure,
Yeah.
the correlation between wealth and happiness actually levels off. It's kind of like climbing a mountain. The view's amazing at a certain point, but going even higher doesn't really make it that much better.
Yeah. That's a good way to think about it.
Yeah.
So if just piling up more and more money doesn't necessarily make us happier, what does Zweig say we should focus on?
Well, he talks a lot about the importance of things like strong social connections, having a sense of purpose in life, and doing things that bring us joy,
Yeah, that makes sense.
Those are the things that really contribute to long-term happiness, much more than just material wealth.
It's like money is a tool, not the goal in itself, right?
Exactly. It can help us build a good life, but true fulfillment comes from something deeper.
Right. It's a good reminder for all of us, I think.
It is, especially in a society that's so focused on, financial success.
Absolutely. So we've talked about how our brains can sabotage our financial decisions. With loss aversion, the dopamine rush of gains the illusion of control.
Right.
And we've touched on the relationship between money and happiness.
Right.
But Zweig doesn't just leave us with all these brain facts, does he?
No, not at all. He actually gives us some practical advice on how to navigate the financial world more effectively.
Okay, good. Because I was starting to feel a little hopeless.
Well, don't worry. One of his key pieces of advice is to create a well-defined investment plan and actually stick to it.
So it's like having a roadmap to guide our financial journey.
Exactly. It helps us avoid making impulsive decisions based on, fear or greed.
Makes sense.
Mm.
What else does he recommend?
He's also a big fan of automating our savings and investments as much as possible.
Oh, that's smart. So we're not constantly tempted to tinker with things.
Right. It takes the emotion out of it and helps us build wealth more consistently over time.
Okay, I like that. Anything else?
He also recommends seeking out financial advice from professionals, but with a critical eye,
So get informed, but don't just blindly follow what anyone says.
Exactly. Remember, everyone's trying to sell you something, so do your research and make sure their advice aligns with your own financial goals and values.
That's a good point. It sounds like Zweig is really encouraging us to become more mindful and intentional with our money.
He is, rather
Yeah.
than letting our emotions or external influences control our choices.
Right, it's like taking back the reins.
Exactly.
Well, this has been such an eye-opening discussion. It's amazing to think about how much our brains are actually influencing our financial behavior without us even realizing it.
It's like we've been operating on autopilot, you know?
We have. But now, thanks to Zweig's insights, we can start to take control. We can rewire our thinking, develop better habits, and make choices that lead to greater financial security and peace of mind.
Exactly. And who wouldn't want that?
Yeah, it's like he's given us this secret decoder ring for the financial world
I like that.
so we can understand what our brains are really trying to tell us.
Exactly.
This whole deep dive into your money and your brain has been amazing.
It really has.
It's made me realize that I've been making financial decisions based on gut feelings,
Yeah.
instead of really understanding how my brain works.
It's so common, though. We're often just running on autopilot,
Right.
not really aware of what's driving our choices.
But now we know,
We do.
and we can use this knowledge to make better decisions
Exactly. We can actually rewire our thinking and develop healthier habits.
and hopefully end up with more financial security and peace of mind.
Absolutely.
So before we wrap things up, I want to leave our listeners with something to think about.
Okay, sounds good.
We've talked a lot about how our brains can mess us up financially. But could there actually be an upside to these, seemingly irrational tendencies?
That's a really interesting question.
Like we talked about loss aversion
Yeah.
and how it can make us overly cautious.
It can.
But maybe that same instinct also helps us avoid reckless risks in other areas of life.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
Like maybe those fears are actually there to protect us in a way.
It's possible. They might have even played a role in our survival as a species.
Right. It makes you wonder if there's a deeper evolutionary reason for all of this.
Absolutely. And that's what I love about neuroeconomics.
What's that?
It's not about judging our brains as good or bad.
Yeah.
It's about trying to understand them.
And how they influence our behavior.
Exactly.
So next time you're faced with a financial decision, big or small,
Yeah.
take a moment to really think about it.
Don't just go with your gut.
Right. Question those assumptions and remember everything we've talked about today.
I think that's great advice.
Because by understanding our brains a little better,
Yeah.
we can make choices that lead to a happier and more fulfilling life.
Well said. It's been a pleasure diving into this with you.
Likewise. Until next time, keep those brains sharp and those wallets happy.